Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Calheros, and today I'll be talking about the wonderful book titled In the Valley of the Cauca, which I had the opportunity to read this semester. The title of the book, as I mentioned, is In the Valley of the Cauca. The author is Bernice Barnett Gonzalez, and this book was published by the Board of Missions of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in 1981. The setting, well, mainly the story takes place in Cali, Colombia, and Bernice shares a bit about her experience doing missions in Cali, Colombia, and the year is 1928. That's when their journey begins in Colombia, and there I included for you a picture of Cali in 1928. As you can see, very different from the Cali we have today. And so there's an image for us to understand a little bit about the setting. Okay, in this short video, I'll be talking about, I'll be highlighting specific parts of the book that I think are really pillars in her testimony of her experience with missions in Colombia. So I decided to highlight these key events that took place in Colombia. Number one, the Women's Board of Missions. We'll be talking about missionaries that were sent to Colombia. We'll look a bit into the work of Bernice and Ethel, also about the beginnings of Colegio Americano, the first CP church in Colombia. We'll take a look a bit about Jose Fajardo, how he went from being a marketer to a moderator, the church in Armenia, the Cauca Presbytery, and also we'll discuss a little bit about application for ministry. The Women's Board of Missions was organized in Evansville on May 25, 1880. When the Colombian mission began, the Women's Board of Missions coordinated foreign missions. And at the time the writer moved to Colombia, the board was presided by Miss Johnny Massey Clay. And there's a short book, the cover of a short book written by the president of the Women's Board of Missions that I included there for you. Okay, the missionaries that were sent to Colombia in Bernice Barnett's book, the following missionaries are mentioned. We have Reverend Schwartz, Mr. Schwartz and his wife, 5 years of service. Also, Reverend Bernice Barnett Gonzalez, 14 years. And then you can see the list there. Reverend Ethel, 16 years. The Conniers were there for 4 years. Miss Betty Smith, 3 years. Miss Ollie Preston, 1 year. And Davis and Gladys Bryson were in Colombia for 15 years. So all of them are mentioned in Bernice's book. Bernice and Ethel felt the call to get into missions, and they went to Colombia in 1928, and the book is fascinating. Their testimonies of their struggles learning the language and adapting to a new culture, but one can see in them such a desire to connect with the culture, a willingness to do everything possible so that the people there can receive God's word and to have an encounter with Christ. And we have a chance to read about what it was to live in Cali in 1928, in those early years, and some of the challenges they faced living at that time in period in Cali. Bernice and Ethel display throughout the book an incredible amount of responsibility, commitment to God's work. Also, we see in them how they were able to take a hold of any resource that was available at the time and make the most out of it, and to expand God's work in Colombia. Both of them eventually married a Colombian citizen. Ethel married a man from the Roa family, and Bernice married a gentleman from the Gonzalez family. So their commitment with the culture was to that point that they even got married with people that were from Colombia. And so definitely they became, in every sense, a part of the nation, of the Colombian people, and their hearts are there in Colombia as well. The beginnings of Colegio Americano. So it was founded in 1928 in Cali. The school started with 2 teachers, Bernice and Ethel, and 22 students. And it's amazing to see that now the school has 1,600 students who, alongside their academic formation, are learning Christian values. And there's an image for you of the house in Vilachi. Actually, the name of the home was Vilachi, and that's where the school started. They actually tried to get a garden started at one point, but it was not successful. And there's many good stories about that home of Vilachi, where it all started. The first CP church in Colombia actually started at the Vilachi home. That's where it all started. They began having services with Mr. Schwartz and his wife, and eventually kids started to come and attend the meeting once Bernice started playing the piano. And kids were really interested with the sound of music and began attending that first CP church, which eventually became the Central Church in Cali, that to this day ministered to the community in the region. Here's an image of Cali in those early days. Jose Fajardo was actually the first student of Colegio Americano. He was eventually ordained here in the United States in 1934. It's amazing how he returned to Colombia and taught at Colegio Americano and pastored the Cali church. He went back to the United States and he studied at Peabody College in 1944. He eventually got married and had 4 children. He was the first president of the Evangelical Federation Churches in Colombia. Federation of Churches in Colombia. He received a doctor's degree from Bethel College in 1960, and he traveled as interpreter for Billy Graham during his crusade in South America. He later participated in Christian crusades and conferences in Europe, Korea, and the Philippines. During 1975 through 77, he planned and directed the construction of the expanded Colegio Americano in a Cali suburb. In 1978, he was elected as moderator of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. So it's amazing how Jose went from being the first student of Colegio Americano, being taught by Bernice and Ethel, and he eventually became the moderator of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, full circle, from receiving the gospel in Colombia through missionaries of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Now he is the moderator for the denomination that one day shared the gospel with him. Truly a remarkable story. The book also talks about God's work being extended to the region of Armenia. In 1934, the Workers' Council decided to send the Brysons to live in Pereira. And in June of 1930, Albert Conyers and Bernice Barnett traveled to La Helvecia. And there's a picture for us on the left of Pereira. And the mission building is right at the right. And also an image of La Helvecia. And we see a large group of Colombians there gathered for worship. The Cauca Presbytery was organized in 1935, and the 3 ministers which are required by our denomination to establish a presbytery were Jose Fajardo, Ethel, and Bernice. And Jose Fajardo was the moderator, and there's an image of Cali in 1935. Applications for ministry for us. In this book, one can see the passion in Bernice, Ethel, and the missionaries that were in Colombia. We can see their commitment to God's work, and it's such a lesson for us, such an example for us to follow. I was truly inspired by their testimony, to see their dedication to God's work, at times traveling 6 hours on horse to go to faraway lands in the Andes Mountains to share the gospel. And Bernice will take her organ with her to play music and lead worship in that region, and in a language, a culture that was foreign to her, but nothing could keep her from sharing the gospel with others. And that's a great example for us, because we have the same call to preach the good news of Jesus Christ, to make disciples of all nations. So they really are a reference for us, an example to follow of what it means to passionately share the gospel with all people. My review on the book, 5-star. It's a 5-star book. I highly recommend this book. It has deeply inspired me, and I hope this presentation will also inspire you to read the book and see what God did in Colombia in those early days, and that it will inspire you the same way as it did inspire me to preach God's word and to let God use our lives to reach the nations for Christ. God bless you, and thank you for your time and for watching this video as I talk about the book In the Valley of Cauca.